Hi everyone, welcome back. This is the penultimate session before the grand finale. So thank you ever so much for staying around and thank you ever so much for coming in here. So, putting brands that consumers love, that's what we're going to find out in the next half hour, and we've got a great panel to take us through that. That'll be guided by Rachel Forde. I will invite Rachel and her panelists up to the stage, and I will let Rachel and the panelists make their own introduction. So please give them a very warm welcome.
It's fine, I don't think it's any particular order. We're just saying what order should everybody sit in, just to try and not confuse people. But yeah, we're on the homeward straight now, aren't we? I think we're between here, David Abraham, and drinks. So, but I've been really looking forward to this all day. We've had quite a healthy debate across the past week or so, and we're really lucky to have a really esteemed panel here with us today. So we did say 30-second intro, so we'll see if we stick to brief. So could you, do you want to start, Al?
Mackie, Chief Creative Officer at RAPP. 30 seconds, well, 21. That wasn't my age, that's now 19 seconds. I've been blessed because I work in the creative department, so I've worked on a number of brands throughout my career. I feel lucky, particularly when I was younger, to work across a lot of brands and see their sort of go-to-market strategies for the way they engage consumers. So I feel lucky.
Lucky. Do you feel lucky, Punk?
Very lucky. But I'm Ollie Lewis. I'm CEO, founder of The Fifth. It's actually our 5th birthday as well, only in March.
I know, that is an amazing. Happy birthday.
And actually, for that purposes, I will introduce who we are briefly, because you may not all know, but we're a social creative and influence marketing agency, and we help our clients globally, I guess, to build their brands through sort of inherent understanding of their cultural fluency, but born in an influence marketing space. We've moved into a broader 360 social agency. I'm also co-chair of the influence marketing trade body. So what's frightening about the 5 years is that not only how young we are, but also just how far the influence marketing space has moved in that 5 years. And it's now such a trusted and more sustainable and art form, and that's what I'm here to evangelise, really.
Brilliant. Daniel.
Hello. Can you hear me? Oh, it's weird. I am Dan Fox-Evans. I work for a small little niche brand called Heinz. But I am a ex-YouTuber who sort of fell into the advertising industry through the normal path most of us do. I was a cardiac specialist in a heavy metal band that just used to make videos. So I've worked on all sorts of brands, from sort of your big chunky ones through to launching Foot Asylum as a YouTube content creator, and sort of moving into sort of the brand in-house space now.
And last but not least, Elly.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Elly. I'm brand director at Trainline. I actually started my career off in the media world, so I was working media agency side before I made the move. And I worked at Trainline before, at Moonpig before Trainline. And at Trainline, as well as being brand director, I head up global media effectiveness and also global brand insight.
Amazing. Right, so let's dive in then. So today's panel, Building Brands Consumers Love. I think we've definitely got some love marks and love people on this panel today. But I suppose, looking at towards you, Dan and Elly, in a world where everything's changing, is creativity the most important lever that brand owners can pull in terms of driving us brand love, brand effectiveness, and ultimately business? I suppose, should we start with you, Dan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, fundamentally, creativity is human currency, right? This is how we interact, and this is how we engage with people. And creativity can end up creating effectiveness, but I think if you start with effectiveness, you don't end up in a creative space. So it's always better to cut through with creativity. I always sort of relate it to, especially in the age of social, we're trying to be social brands, we're trying to engage, we're trying to create love. This whole thing is about, being a loved brand. Think about the things you love. You love them irrationally. You have this kind of weird sort of belonging to them. Someone once brought me a pair of socks for my birthday. It's a very effective gift. They were lovely, warm socks. I don't love the person that gave them to me. My girlfriend at the time made a mixtape bespoke of all her favorite songs that remind. That's super creative, and it's effective because we got married. All right, so it ended up in a really, super effective place, born from creativity. And I sort of say to sort of people, don't be a brand that just gives people socks, because they won't fall in love with you. And we're trying to be in an age of social a brand that people irrationally love and connect to, you do that through creativity. Creativity is a bonus word. Like, you know, if you fall in love with someone, you just say, they're so creative, they're amazing. You don't say, they're such an effective partner, or they're such an efficient lover. You know, you talk about the bonus and the qualities of them through the language of creativity. So it's a human currency. That's my main take.
Elly, follow that.
I mean-
Anybody bought you socks?
So I think from my point of view, creativity is super, super important. But actually it's customer understanding and customer insight that drives the creativity. That is the number one thing. And I think, yes, it drives creativity, but it also drives media effectiveness as well. So really that customer understanding, I think if you've got a strong customer proposition, that's going to flow through everything. And I think, you know, to give an example from Trainline, our purpose is to empower greener choices. And we know that 2/3 of people want to make greener choices, but only 1/3 feel like they're able to do so. There's this massive attitude to action gap. And actually, people feel a bit disempowered when taking the train actually can make a really big difference. And so we, in collaboration with Mother, our creative agency, created a campaign that was unbranded, really there to drive pride in rail, called I Came by Train. And it was this insight and really trying to make it super attainable for people to make that change. So really just shifting one journey from car, air to rail. That was the kind of insight that we went through. And I think that also came across in the media. When we planned our media activity, we did it in areas where we know that not only will a train journey be greener than car or rail, but it'll also be cheaper or faster. And so really we kind of use those insights, pulled them through creative, but also media to kind of create an effective campaign. And it worked because we did see that shift in, you know, intent of people switching, and actually people saying they'd switched as well.
Amazing. So it really goes right through to the business. And did the business all buy into that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the important thing as well, is you can make changes for your product as well. I mean, Trainline is a tech company. So really anything that we understand from the customer can flow through into the change we've made for product and the design that we're giving to our customers every day. So it's super important.
Yeah. And I suppose taking that and in the fact that there's so much real-time data and you can affect things on the fly and there's media fragmentation, if I come to kind of like agency owners, does this mean that the big idea is dead, or does that still live? I don't know if, Al, do you want to answer that first as a
Yeah. I would say it's more important than ever because it's easier to create work. There's a huge content gap for businesses and brands trying to create enough content to satisfy what consumers are looking for. So you need cut through. So the data gives you, I really like the example you're giving there. Actually, quite often we talk about it in our business around a data point does not make an insight. It's a data point. So you need the data point. You then need to build on that. Dan, we were talking about it outside in terms of the insights, then powers the creativity. And that's where you build the meaningful connections between consumers and brands. So I think you need those big ideas powered by that work. And then you need to be able to automate it and drive consistency at scale. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people are wrestling with right now.
Yeah. Ollie?
I mean, we're all in danger of agreeing. I think 100% the big idea is more important than ever. I mean, if we unpack fragmentation, it's not just the fragmentation of media and channels and audiences, but we live in a world now where we have got super niche communities at scale, all engaging in a fundamental way that is like no other in terms of the speed of responsiveness and the feedback loop for that. But despite all of that fragmentation, we've never been more connected and fluid in the way that we expect messaging to move through those channels, right? And you still expect now to be able to pick up a brand story on a digital out-of-home ad and see how it carries through to your YouTube experience and feel how that there is an overarching creative platform and idea that binds and glues the whole strategy together. I think if anything, if fragmentation of media is not the problem, it's the fragmentation of our marketing. We've become so overly obsessed in the inches and centimeters of growth as opposed to what we used to fundamentally believe was big leaps and bounds and you could move miles with your brand if you were bold and brave enough with a big idea. I just think maybe it's become too comfortable to say it's not possible when actually it really, really is. And we've got to meet our audiences exactly where they want to be met. And and show up at the right time. And the expectation, though, is, I believe, and you will see it in the communities, the response to big creative ideas is what's winning brand love. And
But is the question, just to play devil's advocate, is the gatekeeping of the big idea from agencies dead? Right? I think we're in an age where there was a time where agencies were like lone wolves and they could just create something, put it out, and you pump enough media behind it, you expose enough eyeballs, and you get that kind of reach and penetration. We're in an age of conversation and that gatekeeping of saying we as the agencies are the only people that can kind of come up with it. Now we're much more in the sort of era of listening to the audience, involving them, and the big idea is still there. It's just changed from a big idea that you do in isolation to a big idea that you do in connection and driven by human insight. And that's the fundamental of what our industry should be. Human behavior, insight, extrapolate, deliver what the audience wants, where they want it. But at some point, agencies just had so much power to buy eyeballs that they kind of, they got high on their own supply and thought, we can just put out beautiful things we like. And in a way, social and the internet has kind of brought us back and humbled us and said, no, we're the most important people in the conversation, not the agencies, not the kind of what you want to do.
Well, it's democratised it, hasn't it, really?
Yeah.
Even like completely different world. This morning I was having a chat with head of audience and insight at the Times, and actually I was saying how many, because they get so many comments, and that's about their engagement in their brand. They get so many comments. I was saying, actually, how many news stories come from the comments of your, your super sleuths, and it's actually they do every day. They analyse that data, and then they invite these journalists then to come, journalists, normal people to come over to their offices, and actually it is that whole thing that everybody can have a little piece of that brand. And actually, sorry, Daniel, building on that and thinking about actually how that democratisation of, yes, the big brand idea, but I think it's about I think it's also about brand consistency, isn't it? But then allowing the brand to morph based on, because you've got a really good example actually, Dan, of how you listened to what consumers wanted and you actually even created a product coming out of that, didn't you?
Yeah, so our whole sort of social approach and our kind of audience approach is predicated on a rational love, right? People love our products, people love what we create, so inherently we want to love our audience and listen to them. And I think social is so often misunderstood as a broadcast sort of channel. It's the magic is in the comments, the magic is in where people talk back to you. They've taken the time to sort of respond to your sort of post, and they often have a really great idea. And there's two things that we did, one recently and another example we've got in there. I can't remember which way they're around, but we launched a phone case. There's a company called Rode who did a phone case with a lip balm, and someone was like, yeah, it's all right, but it would be, because they swore, really funny if Heinz did this, and we were like, of course it would. So we mocked something up and went, yeah. And then we got messages to the point where our poor social media manager had to turn off the notification saying, please make this, please do this, we'll do anything. And in the old model, we could be like, well, that idea is is from our audience. We don't own that. But we were like, it's a really good idea. Let's see if we can actually make this into a real thing. And I think that's the interesting thing. We listen to the audience. You want this, so we facilitate it. So we're a creative agency in the sense that we enable our audience's creative, and we sort of use our creativity to amplify it. So we made a phone case that holds a little sachet of ketchup.
Have we got an example? I think we've got an example of it, haven't we? We've got an example of the...
We may do.
Maybe.
So this is our launch video.
How much are they selling for now?
On
the black
eBay.
market. Yeah.
Quite like. So we made this ketchup phone case. It's a real product. It's a real thing. That video, I think got 1.3 million in 24 hours from totally organic. The follow-on videos also, each of them getting around about sort of 500,000 sort of things. And we fed a need from the audience. And our organic strategy then allows us to we basically build permission for when we're doing paid, because people are happy to see us turn up, that when we start to do our paid sort of communication, we're not interrupting. They're like, oh, I love Heinz, and oh, they're just talking to me about something. We're a true social friend. We don't just phone up when we need something. We turn up and do something that our audience needs. So then that hybrid model means that we cut through far more. And I think doing that, it seems insane, but doing things that the audience really relish gives you permission to talk to them as like a true friend. Like sometimes you want something from them, sometimes you're giving something to them. And this gives us permission to do the sort of the paid organic sort of hybrid approach.
And I think, look, at the end of the day, you build brands that people love to drive commercial value for the business. And it is that just trying to get it right between how do you build the brand, how do you build the marketing objectives, and also hitting that sweet spot all the way through to commercial. Running an app like Trainline, you immediately can see the commercial impacts of the work you do. How do you then balance that again with maybe doing something a little bit more irreverent like this, or when everything can be so easily kind of measured into the commercial from your point of view? But yeah, how do you balance brand and commercial within Trainline?
So, I mean, we're always developing the brand. That's a never-ending job. I think as we get new insights, as we get new challenges, we're always going to be continuing to develop our brand. And I think part of it is taking risks creatively, and understanding that we've got commercial targets, marketing targets, but also understanding that having a strong brand is going to enable us to hit them, and really trying to kind of bounce off our strong brand into that. Trainline's been an interesting place in the last couple of years with industrial action. I don't know if we want to do a bit of a show of hands of who's been affected by rail strikes. It's definitely come up in a couple of there we go, quite a lot. It's come up in a couple of other talks I went to today. And what we're seeing is that brand love and trust in rail has decreased from 60% in 2022 to 53% in 2023. So really, people are kind of falling out of love with rail. And it's interesting what you were saying about fostering love. We're kind of having to tackle an industry love problem, and really Trainline's role in that is kind of maintaining the trust that we have and making sure that we're developing our brand and our communications in a way that's going to be by the side of the customer throughout all of this kind of turmoil. And I think as well, it's a complicated industry. You guys have been customers of the rail. Sometimes you don't know what the cheapest price is. And I think there is a way to get cheaper prices. And it's just Trainline's job to be able to enable that to happen amongst some of the kind of chaos of the wider industry.
Yeah, it's a challenge, isn't it? But, as I say, actually trust in brand is more important than ever, isn't it? And if you can try and separate yourself from the industrial action, but a tricky one. And so we spoke earlier about kind of like media proliferation, the fact that you can get real-time data insights constantly, you can change things on the fly. As an media agency leader, we were always trying to get to the top, like we're now media's at the top of the table because we've got all this data, we can attribute it in real time and really prove our value. And not that it was kind of pushing creative down that food chain, but do you think that media agencies should be saying that, look, we should take the lead not only in terms of media placement and planning, but actually the creative messaging as well? I suppose I'll start with Ollie first on that.
I mean, no, but I'm going to champion the creatives at the table here. I mean, ultimately, creative is the biggest lever for driving media performance, but that isn't to suggest that we shouldn't be evolving that relationship. And actually, I think we are, and we're seeing a lot of agencies move to a more integrated model. I mean, you look, reflecting on the merger of the AMP partnership and M6 recently, they're binding those two agencies together through a layer of AI, which is a smart move. But ultimately what they're saying is that as much as creative drives media performance, it's actually what media brings to the table that should be much earlier in the process to drive creative and strategy. Yeah. There's so much, you're right, there's so much data at the front and the back end that gleans on the levels of insight post-campaign, but also the amount now, I mean, the enhancements, I'm trying not to say AI more than twice, but the amount of AI is developing social listening now. And again, in upfront ability to understand how your communities and how your audiences are engaging and how cultural triggers and cultural moments can be received. that amount of data that should be put in at a much earlier stage in the creative and strategic thinking process. And a lot of that can come from media experience. I will say that it's quite interesting being born in an influencer space and living in social and influencer world where actually inherently we can't succeed if we don't understand both now. I mean, the diminishing returns on creative and influencer content, particularly on social, without an in-depth understanding of how media works and how you can apply that creative, we really wouldn't be as successful as I think as we were today. So actually, we're sort of a microcosm of where the space of creative and media tension probably needs to come together. So I think at the same table and much earlier.
Yeah, and I think it's like the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. Everybody needs to be working together. If you speak to any client, they say, look, I want all my agencies working together and using the same data points and obviously all the way through to driving that effectiveness. Obviously, RAPP's part of Omnicom. How do you play nicely within Omnicom?
I mean, our biggest wins over the last few years are where we've worked very closely, hand in hand with media. We build teams that have all those skill sets in it, and that's what we're able to offer, and it's a powerhouse offering because you need precision and empathy. If you've just got precision but you haven't got the content, you haven't got the empathy and the creativity alongside it, then you're just spray and pray.
Yeah.
And it's eyeballs, whereas actually you've got to build it's through connected data, connected content. You want to use all those assets that you've created everywhere. Something that's come from social listening could easily become your next TV campaign, could easily become a customer experience. And if you don't connect the content and understand what's working, you can't then move towards connected decisioning, which is ultimately what media agencies are trying to offer. So everyone has to be in there, and cross-functional teams are absolutely needed.
Yeah. And that's not just in the agency world as well, because I mean, Dan, you're in an interesting space because you're almost like an agency within a brand, and also from Elly, from your point of view, the commercial teams must work really closely with the marketing teams. But how do you bring? I suppose I'll start with you, Dan. How do you bring your agencies, whether that's in-house, your external agencies, your commercial teams, and then marketing, how do you bring that all to get to the best results and make it seamless and I suppose remove bottlenecks that can kind of come up across the way?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I suppose because I came into the industry not through the sort of traditional ways, everyone seems really like this top table. What is this top table, right? And there's really the top is your audience. Right, that's what we're in function of, the audience and the brand, and we're all fighting over who gets to sit at this top table and chat to the brand and get more of the pie and all that. Yeah, but ultimately, that doesn't help client and it doesn't help the audience. And so much of our focus on who does what, when, how, that actually there's room at whatever table this top table is for all of us to be bloody brilliant at what we do. And not try and kind of, and it's an advertising trait where, you'll try and kind of land grab and take things from other people. Oh, we could do that. We can do that. It's like, or just accept that they're brilliant at what they do, and you should listen to them, and you should trust them, and you should actually go, they're amazing. And I think building an in-house model, and the reason we kind of get around these bottlenecks is because, like everything, we all want the same thing. Right? If our client does brilliant and our audiences love us, it's win-win for all of us. But because we're not wed to legacy, we're a different model, and we're not trying to pitch against people, we're not trying to steal business, we can actually sit down and go, you're really great. And we've got a PR agency that we work with, and they're really great. And we can sit and celebrate our strengths. And so you get a lot more communication, and from that communication, you get context. And context allows you to know, are you doing something that has a commercial driver? Because again, we're all spending our time going, is this right, or this right? And then I think the conversation leaves of, but what are we actually doing for the business? What problem are we solving for the business? And fundamentally, our whole industry is solving problems for businesses and helping consumers and audiences. And once you kind of get into that space and forget about all the kind of the titles, again, I have a title of creative director, but I also do the prototype for the phone. I'm doing all these different innovation. I go to the innovation team and say, we should make this product. And they're like, that's really interesting, because we're not wed to titles and legacy. And I think maybe it's a uniquely UK thing that we're like, oh, above the line, below the line. What is the line? I've never seen this line. Like the top table, who's got pecking order. You know, we build this language, or almost like an advertising media class system. And we kind of go, oh, they're from a below the line, they're from here. And it doesn't help solve a business problem. And fundamentally, that is what we are in function of, solving business problems in a creative and effective way. And once you get that into your head, it's so much easier just to go, you're going to win, I'm going to win, audiences are going to win, clients going to win. This is a really exciting space to be in.
Yeah.
Totally. It's that shared goals, isn't it, ultimately? Because it's interesting. So at Trainline, I came into Trainline in September 21. We were just coming out of COVID. Obviously, the travel industry was affected massively by COVID. And we'd pretty much been off air in brand marketing for 2 years. So it's a bit of a blank canvas. We didn't have a media agency in most of our markets. We didn't have a creative agency. So I had to come in and kind of set all this up, as well as hiring a team. So basically everyone was new, including myself. And that was difficult, but it also meant that we were all learning together, which was amazing because it kind of broke down some of those barriers, because there wasn't this kind of trickle of information coming down. Everyone was learning together. Everyone was helping each other out. You know, creative agency, media agency, my team as I was hiring them, the commercial team who I was relying on to kind of help me get the information. So it was a really nice kind of spirit to foster. And I have just got back from mat leave a few months ago, and I kind of came back in thinking, you know, it's been a year, maybe all of this will have developed so much because we're so much more established than when I left. But actually that same spirit is still there, which I think is really nice, and everyone kind of having those shared goals. And also on top of that, at Trainline, marketing actually sits within commercial, which is an interesting dynamic. And it means that obviously, you know, we do work really closely with our commercial-minded peers and friends, and you know, they will come to us and say, you know, we need to market this or whatever it is. But it also means that we can go to them and say, look, we've got this customer understanding, we've built this proposition, but we need to strengthen it. Commercial people help us strengthen this so that it makes it better for the customer, really. And an example that we've been working on recently, we know that customers on the day really want to know that they're getting the cheapest price. And so we've kind of worked with our commercial team to develop a price promise, basically a best price guarantee for on-the-day tickets. And so we've been able to lean on them as much as they lean on us, which I think is really important.
Yeah, I think you're quite unique because you're an app, you've just got all this data, haven't you, that you can just at the fingertips.
And sometimes it can be death by data as well. So there can be a lot of it. And it's just picking out the nuggets that are right. And we were talking actually just before, there's a lot of quantitative data, but sometimes the real nuggets that can make things really effective is that qualitative data. So, you know, actually speaking to customers and what are they saying, and sometimes that can be really powerful.
Yeah, definitely. I am conscious that we're running out of time. Are there any burning questions that anybody wanted to ask before we go into the kind of final one? We're all kind of we're ready now, aren't we, to go in the homeward straight, as I said. Look, yeah, in this kind of like final few minutes, if you were pushed to say one lever, could there be one lever that drives kind of effectiveness, which we're all trying to in this kind of crazy world? Could you be pressed to one lever if you had to say it?
Yeah, I think it's the connected data piece.
Right.
That's the thing that everyone is struggling with, and then how to use it through into content, and then to build the brand. And you know, brands are built in hearts and minds, and that's our job. It's also the thing that excites me. That's what gets me out of bed, coming into work, doing that. You know, an example of that would be KFC, where we reinvented loyalty for them. How do we make that interesting for the teams? Well, we built the chicken algorithm. Of course we did, right? But that was the data team working with the creatives that has built a chicken algorithm that has changed the fortunes of their loyalty program. So, you know, it's fun.
Yeah,
You know,
data is fun too, isn't it? Oliver, Ollie.
There are so many, right? But I'm going to champion actually I think the one lever that will make such a significant difference in the way in which you show up in social, how to show up, and when it's culturally relevant and authentic. Ultimately, in a world full of data and artificial intelligence, it comes back down to humans and human intelligence. And in that regard, it's probably about who you're employing. And I'm championing employing younger and youth into your teams and giving them the freedom and flexibility within your brand to operate on social creatively, I think it's going to be incredibly important. And there are so many examples of brands that have the belief structure in their brand and the freedom within it, and they're so well established that they can allow their teams on social to flex in a way that is building so much love. Ryanair, Duolingo, these guys really understood the nuance of how you can move in social, and that comes down to their team and
being a bit brave.
And being totally brave with the brand, yeah.
Yeah. Dan? You're not brave at all in Heinz, are you? Creating a whole phone case in a
whole phone case.
sachet holder.
And pink sauce barbecue today. I would say the one under-tapped thing that we need to really get is respect, and that kind of is predicated on you've got to start respecting your audience, you've got to start respecting your junior members of staff. We always say to people when they join us, we're gonna every month I want you to teach us 5 things and we will teach you 5 things, because we're just because we've got more experience doesn't mean we're better. And it's untapping that and respect with all of our kind of clients, all the people that we are smart at what we're doing and take time to listen. And I think, I'm really guilty because I talk a lot, but it's creating that space to listen to people, and then that will take you to a sort of much more creative and exciting place.
Yeah. And Elly, you have the final word.
I'll be quick. I think for me, it's you'll be surprised at what a nugget of customer understanding can do to galvanize the teams. And I think really across both agencies and internal, having a real clear direction, a real clear why and a what for the customer, super powerful.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this great panel today. Thank you very much.